G'day folks. Well, for this afternoon's little autopsy we have a 2008 model LG 42-inch plasma, and I also have outside a older model 40-inch Sony Bravia LCD. Both have smashed panels, as you can see, well and truly smashed. This one might have worked before it got busted up. Originally it just had a cracked panel, and then I think Jay and some of his friends got a bit pissed or drunk and finished it off. But I don't know, I'll assume these boards aren't functional, but who knows. Wouldn't surprise me in the least if it was transport damage or something that broke it. Same with the Bravia LCD, that fires up and does everything it should, but it just has a smashed panel, so that one was probably the victim of a errant game controller or something. Real easy to do, especially if you get frustrated and throw your controller at the television. I've seen someone do that. It wasn't very nice. It ended in a $2,000 television being damaged. So yeah, let's open this thing up and have a look. I've already started taking screws out and I think the whole front's going to fall off it, so I've got to lay it down anyway. Yeah, when you compare a modern or more modern plasma like this one to one of the older ones, there's a massive difference in component technology. The power supply is so much smaller and lighter. Well, not physically smaller, it's still the same as a computer motherboard, but componentry is a lot lighter and just less of it. Even the Z sustain board's a quarter of the size of some of the earlier ones. Again, it's still got a nice array of MOSFETs on it. There's 6 of them, but it's nowhere near as complicated. There's a lot of broken glass in here. I'm going to have to drop the panel out and empty it all out before I throw it back together again and put it down the back. I'll keep them together for the time being just to make it easier to throw the damn things out. The front glass is much thinner too, hence why I probably broke so easily. It's half the thickness of the old plasma panels, and the backing's not even alloy either, it's steel. The backing's a steel pressing, all integrated nutserts and things. Yeah, model PDP 42G 10235. Yeah, buffer board's about the same. Yeah, a lot lighter. That's the Y sustained board, and again various semiconductors. That's about it. Digital board's nothing special. It's got Genesis Display Perfection imaging processor, 3 HDMI inputs plus probably another one there, yep. USB input, optical audio, D-sub, and your regular component and that sort of thing like that. Panel LVDS driver and everything's under there, which is actually an alloy heatsink extrusion. Yeah, much more simplified. Unfortunately, destroying the panel also destroyed the power supply. There's a nice big fracture through there to try and repair. I don't know if there's any other fractures. Oh, there's one under there. So the power supply could probably be reused, but destroying the panels actually smashed the power supply. So yeah, not such a good idea. Anyway, if it's just busted solder traces, or sorry, copper circuit traces, it's easy enough to lay a bit of copper wire over them and just solder over it. I've repaired plenty of chassis in the past that have had drop damage, particularly CRT televisions where there's a big transformer mounted on it. It hits the ground so hard the transformer keeps going and cracks all the board around it. So I've done quite a lot of different dropped electronic repairs, so the power supply is probably still repairable and serviceable. I doubt there's anything wrong with it, but who knows. I could disconnect the power feed to the sustains and give that a go. Looks like Z sustain comes off here instead of off the power supply on the older ones. That's going to the digital board, that's going to sustain boards, and that's power in. There's nothing else to it. Well, I suppose I can't plug it in and test it till I repair it anyway, so I'm not going to do that. Anyway, it's all for parts. Well, got all the boards out and split the thing in half, and that's about all that's left of it. See all the rows of pixels on the glass. Well, the camera won't pick it up, but there are rows of red, green and blue pixels. Again, it's just a big cold cathode fluorescent lamp. There's a gas filling port. There's not much to it. It's very thin glass on these new ones. It's almost half the thickness of the old ones. And each layer, the front and the back, have etched conductive lines on each of them. It's a pretty interesting process. And the edges are sealed with some kind of tough, almost epoxy-like goo. Pretty good. There's one of the little chip-on-film drivers. Panel drives end on the bottom. X sustain. Yeah, interesting. And there's some of the backing. So anyway, I guess I better clean this up and move on to the next one. Sony Bravia LCD. But the boards themselves, well, I don't know if the power supply is going to be much good. There are quite a few cracks in it, but the rest of these boards might be alright. Okay, well, this is number 2 for today. Actually, I should say the next day. I couldn't be bothered doing this last night, so we'll break it up into 2 days and just do it all together. Likewise, I want to scrap this monitor as well. It's got chips in the panel, and the backlight seems to be working, but the image is very dark and very just blurred. So there's something horribly wrong, probably with the T-Con board or the digital board in it. Might have a good power supply. Yeah, this is a Sony, what do you call it, Bravia 40-inch. Bit of a shame. They're a nice set, but this one had a cracked panel when it was found, and I think it tricked Jay a couple of times. He looked at it and realised it was cracked twice, and then decided to kick it a few times, so made sure it looked like it was broken, which is easy to do. It's real hard to spot one little crack in a panel, especially when they're this dark. Yeah, that's about all it does. Panel's too badly damaged now for it to even stay on, but it's all there, so I'll open this bastard up and rip the guts out. That's all it is. All it's for now is just parts. The casing's too badly beat up, so I'm going to just keep it for spares. I might find one that needs a power supply one day. It's a fairly older model, fairly chunky compared with today's LCDs. The newer Bravias are about half this thickness, so this one's fairly old. Anyway, it can go. It does have full HDMI and everything on it, so yeah. Someone might want a board for one, I don't know. If anyone's watching's after parts for these, well, wouldn't hurt to sell some of the bits off and recoup at least some money for the tip when I go to get rid of some of these plastic casings. Not sure when I'm going to get around to building the big shredder, so trying to just cut them in half with the jigsaw and take them to the tip is probably the best option, because I've got quite a few now, as well as CRT casings, a couple of buckets of CRT glass and other stuff. You can only filter so much through the household rubbish before the bin gets too heavy or full. Not that it's a problem with that, I can legally do it. If anyone asks you, just say you've accidentally dropped your TV and it broke. So yeah, you can sneak some of this stuff into the rubbish, you just got to make it small enough that you can get the rest of your rubbish in there. Like that. If it's a plasma glass, not a problem. A full 40-inch or 36-inch CRT plus bits of plastic casing, that takes up half the bin and it weighs a ton. Trust me, I know. Okay, pretty straightforward. It's a Korean-made panel made by SLCD. Yeah, pretty basic. LCDs are way more basic than plasmas and a lot easier to work on, a lot safer. You do still have high voltages present, like your inverter will give you a nasty zap. And obviously you've got mains voltages present on the power supply, but they're not quite as bad as plasmas. And of course you still have to be very careful with both of them. Plasmas are a lot more dangerous, especially for a beginner, because there is 190 volts DC across most of the main boards, Even 65 volt LVDS will still hurt, so you got to be very careful with them. But anyway, we've got the backlight inverter boards under here, so all that's going to be stripped off. Power supply is going to come out. Everything's going to come out. Everything's in pretty good condition. So there's the main digital board. Under that heatsink there'll be probably a big BGA chip, ball grid array soldered chip. So I'm not going to pull that to bits. It's actually soldered to the board. But yeah, and likewise there's the T-con board up there. Yeah. What more can I say? There isn't much to it. It's a couple of crappy little Chinese 10-watt speakers, and that's about it. And they come out in little modules. That's not so useless. They're not really a box though. They're all made to use the housing as a box. They've already got ones out of another plasma which have their own thick moulded polypropylene cases. They don't even sound tinny when you knock them. It's just very hard, thick PE or PP, and they actually sound pretty good. Even hooked up to this old turntable radio tuner, just on tuner, it sounds pretty good. But these ones here are not so useful because they're not boxed. Anyway, let's part this thing out and then rip into the panel itself. I want the plastic diffuser material. I've run out of that and I'm itching to get my hands on some more. Same with that monitor there. That won't go completely unused. I'll be using the bits of plastic out of it. Oh, well, there's your backlight drive. That's what the main inverter powers. Not an awful lot on there. I'm not sure what these are. It says JP, so I'm guessing it's just a jumper. Or maybe a fusible link. Don't know. Yeah, not a lot on there. This one just slides out and socketed. Yeah, I think it has to be pulled out two hands very evenly and pop, and it'll come out. I don't think there's anything on the underside, but we can find out. It's tiny little transistors, or no, it's D diode. Little diodes and things, that's about it. Most of the driving's done by the main inverter. This just splits the high voltage to the CCFLs that we'll see inside it. I've done a few little LCD autopsies, so some of you might have seen this before, but if you haven't, they're kind of interesting. And of course, we'll have to rescue the T-con board as well. I don't know for sure if any of this stuff's alright. It might have had a bad T-con to start with, or whatever. Once the panel's smashed, it's hard to tell. Okay, well that's the T-con board. Standard wise view board. That's the model there. Version 3.0. Probably a standard item for a number of different panels, or at least the same panel in a number of different sets. It's definitely not a Sony panel. I don't even know if Sony make them, but yeah, I don't even know if Sony actually make a panel. Do they even make a plasma or an LCD panel of their own, or do they just source them like everyone else does? I think Fujitsu and Fujitsu used to make them. I don't know if they still do. Samsung and LG certainly do. Sharp, I'm not sure. I think Sharp make their own panels because they make them up to 90 inch now, which is a cool $16,000 if you got the money. But it's an LED backlit LCD. And my one of my workmates worked on a job recently where it was an OLED panel, and it was about the size of, well, this whole shed door assembly, and it cost $100,000. I can't say whose place it's at for security reasons, but yeah, he showed me a short video of it, and that's one massive panel for an OLED panel. $100,000 OLED LCD panel. Pretty impressive. Well, that's about it for that one. We got the panel itself, easily removed. The main acrylic diffuser, which was busted before I got it, and the waterlogged inner layers of diffuser. Well, sorry, outer layers I should say. This is the innermost, and the CCFL grid, which, as you can see, that's why I wasn't happy. They are broken. Yeah, and that's about it. I think the rest of it's dead. So I'll keep that and that, which is what I was after. The rest of it, scrap bin. Not worth keeping. Tiny little tubes. that mercury. Nah. There is very, very little mercury in those things. And I'm making a mess again. Oh well. Rubbish bin. I think that's the end of that one. Let's move on to another one. We'll get rid of that, and maybe even the waterlogged Samsung that's outside. Okay, we've got the badly weathered Samsung now. This one's been out in the weather for a very long time, as you can see by the rust. I'm not really even going to bother opening up the panel. I'm just going to see what boards are salvageable. If there's nothing salvageable, then the whole lot goes. I'm not going to waste my time trying to sandblast and clean components and things. It's not worth it. It's LA32 T51B LS, made in Korea. So yeah, usual stuff. This one's been out in the weather so long it's gone from grey plastic to a nasty looking oxidised green. That's how bad this one is. And again, smashed panel. Funny thing is, when it was still dry it did power up. I'm not going to put power to it at the moment because it's very wet, but you know what would happen if I did. Who knows? If I can't salvage anything out of it, I might keep it in one piece and do something horrible to it. We always find a way around here. Well, that's certainly the nastiest looking LCD I've seen in a while. There's a lot of stuff in here that shouldn't be here. The power supply looks half decent. I mean, there's a lot of rust on the steel heat sinks and shields and things, but I think that's about the only thing I'm going to bother keeping. The panel drive and everything's been saturated again. Or backlight, I should say. Yeah, digital board. Rather nasty. So yeah, I'm going to salvage the power supply, that's about it. T-con is... Yeah, T-con was under the main part of the cover, but again, I can see oxide on pins and things from here. So yes, power supply. Power supply was still working, funnily enough. So yeah. This thing did show fairly reasonable signs of life anyway, but again, for something that's been this badly waterlogged, not worth the trouble. The rest of it can go in the bin. Well, as for the BenQ monitor, yeah, well, I got what I came for. That's all that matters. The rest of it, who cares? I don't know if the power supply is any good or not, but it was trying to work. It even started strobing the backlight, so maybe the power supply is no good. Don't know. I've got a million bits for these things, so I'll throw it all out. But I'll keep this. Plastic layers and the big acrylic backing panel. Very handy stuff. So that's the end of that one. That's the end of the scrap LCDs for now. That gets them out of the way. I'm just trying to make room. I don't want any more sitting around outside. So I can take the rest of it to the dump and to the scrap yard and be done with it. Anyway, thanks for watching and stay tuned for more.